Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, my precious pack, and welcome back once more to VEGA Conflict. More specifically, welcome to Deep Space. A feature that I have wanted to talk about for a while now, but until it was officially launched, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to speculate or anything like that, but now that it's here, this is going to be a blast. For those of you of the Xeno Division that are just returning, you may have left or something like that, this is going to be ideal for you to be able to advance because it's a steady progression path via farmable blueprints up to one of the current Tier 7 factions, that is the Tier 7A, Altarians in their sector, with blueprints that drop from targets. Vanguard is the Bastion, Liege is the Inquisitor, the Brigade is going to be the Paragon, and the Regiment is going to be the Cavalier, and the Mothership right here is going to be the Sovereign Carrier. And the blueprints also drop alongside other things, so you're going to have to farm the fragments for them, just like anything else. But you're going to be able to farm them using the ships that you have and ships that you're given. And if you've been playing recently, you have an entire fleet of Ogre battleships, so you should, if you have a decent fleet bay, you should be able to fit them all in there and start farming the Altarian targets to start picking yourself up some blueprints, to start making use of the new system. Aside from that, the way they streamlined the information tab is just beautiful. Well made, and all of the targets are easily identifiable via the level. As you can see, as you go down, it goes higher level on each one, slowly going down until you reach the higher levels up towards 91 and above. And the same holds true to the Altarian sector, with it being the next faction up from them. It goes 80 up towards 110 for some target levels, but the highest you're going to see for the standard ones that are not like the United for the USA themed ships, you actually will have up to 101 and as low as a 90. This is amazing. Let me tell you why. Let's just jump over back here for a second. For all of you returning players, you have a clear path of progression now. You do not have to wait for any monthly events or anything like that. And since the current streak breaker for the blueprint drops is set to 15 if you don't get any of the fragments of a blueprint in the first 14 strikes, which I never really saw. I always got them in the first typically 8. You'll be given one on the 15th. And the targets, they drop, as I said, they drop the corresponding equipment, the blueprints, the items, things like that. The Reaper cargo in this case, it actually drops stuff for the Guardian. Let's go ahead and let's take a quick look at it. It drops the Guardian, Harmonic Exophase Shield level 1, Harmonic Chase Thrusters 1 through 3, Tungsten Armor 1 and 2, Pulse Cannon 1 and 2, as well as Energy Alien Tungsten Armor. Now, Tungsten is worse off than Talonite because Talonite, a tier lower, has superior armor to weight. But overall, the Tungsten is lighter weight, so you can have certain fittings that may not allow heavier Tungsten, or in this case, heavier Talonite, in its place. And as you can see, it's a blueprint item, so once you collect it, you can just build as much as you want. And another thing, you can actually see how many blueprints are required. To get the Guardian, you'll need 8 pieces. Shields, you'll need 4 for the level 1, 5 for the level 1 Chase Thruster, 5 for the level 1 Armor, 4 for the level 1 Weapon, 5 for level 2. So it looks like for Technology and Armor, it's going to be 5. For level 2 items, it's going to be 5. Okay, so most of it's going to be 4 to 5 parts. So it shouldn't be difficult to farm them up after you get your strategy down pat, or you find out a remarkably good farming fleet. Let's go ahead and let's take a quick look back at my base because I'm going to talk about that a bit. Before we continue on, before I talk about the major feature that is going to be an Axis non-PvP hub area, one thing that you guys are going to love is that there's going to be a campaign mission to be able to start getting people caught up, and you're going to be given Xeno Division tech to be able to help you start getting into the Axis tech. This is all Axis. All of these ships, this is Axis. Every single thing here you see has harmonic benefits, and we'll explain that later. Then you have the suppressor, and this is where you step into the Xeno division. You have the exterminator. These are ships you may recognize if they were from around the time frame you may have left the game. Every single one of them, the Punishers and everything like that. One thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my built up fleets, and I'm going to build up my Punishers and stuff like that via crafting events, things like that. I'm going to take them out and I'm going to test them against the target. So I'm going to take technology you guys are going to have to use to advance against them. In this case, I'm going to make it so that they're going to be the Apex and they're going to be the elite ships. As you can see, no fittings on them other than shielding and maybe some resistors. But I'm going to build them up a little bit differently. In the case of the cruisers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build them up to truly be tanks. So they're going to have an extremely long repair time, light weaponry, and be slow moving. But their goal is I want them to be out in the front, taking all the hits for ships that are behind them, such as battleships with extremely light fittings but extremely heavy firepower, backed by a Paladin, or in this case a Dominion, because the Xeno division, they never got a carrier. And one thing that I would like the development team to try and rectify in the future is think about a way to get the Xeno division a carrier, because each faction has a carrier, each tier has a carrier more specifically, and adding one for the Xeno division just to have that little bit of a support role or something like that for them, it would be nice. It would be a slightly better progressive way so that they don't actually have to get to this faction and keep using a lower tier carrier that's going to take more damage from the targets they're going to be fighting if the AI decides that it wants to attack it specifically. So that's something for the game team to think about. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 cruisers and 2 to 3 battleships or 2 to 3 destroyers and a carrier out to use in combat. And the role is going to be simple, just fight and win. And show off the repair times and stuff afterwards so you can see exactly what you're going to be fighting at with the best gear that you can have on them. Now, back to the Deep Space Navigator. Let's go ahead and let's take one more look in here under the Axis area. One thing that any of you that may have been playing will remember, or may not remember, when you left during that time frame, there was a harvester vessel. Well, while you were gone, we were given that harvester, except for it's a player variation. It's a cloned ship, and it was admitted by an Altarian friend of ours that is now deceased. But here in this sector, you will work towards constructing the hulking harvester that utilizes jump drive technology. You will be working towards this ship right here. A classless ship that shares statistics with dreadnoughts. A jump ship, but it has a range like no other, with a 25% range boost that affects its squadrons as well. This is going to be your longest range ship in the game for your faction, and once you step up in the Axis, this is going to be like your flagship. This is going to be your go-to ship for fighting dangerous targets because it brings the firepower with it. It alone, as you see, with my fitting, brings 13,123 damage per second. However, that is before I account for harmonic benefits, and that is something we'll talk about in an Axis video very soon. But this is going to be a ship that you're going to be working towards, and how you craft it is going to be through your workshop for a set amount of fragments, 1,000 to be precise. Unlike the higher tier Dreadnought faction ships though, you do not have to go level by level, it comes pre-elite, with all the benefits of an elite ship. Movement speed, cargo, the maximum mass, everything that you can think of. And it's all pre-built and ready. You just have to fit it. They've done, and this is going back here now that I've talked about that, they've done an exceedingly good job with the introduction and the launch of Deep Space. In my eyes, they're building a progression system for the players that do not have to rely on events. You'll be able to farm up the technology as you slowly progress. At your own pace, you will not be forced to farm for technology at an accelerated rate because of a timed event that this is going to be your chance to get it, whereas next month will be next month, and so on and so forth. So the farther you fall behind, the harder it'll be to catch up. No. Going forwards, we're going to see more and more of this. We're going to see blueprint targets and things like that as the factions progress, except for we're not going to see blueprints the same month from what I understand, but we may see them 3, 4, 5, 6, half a year down the line, we will see them. It's going to be something that is just introduced using the targets we farm for the mark upgrades. So in this case, the Reaper Cargo and the Reaper Supplies are almost similar. Well, they are similar. The difference is, one gives you blueprints, even though it doesn't show it here. This one does drop blueprint fragments. And the one over here drops the actual fragments to upgrade your ship. And this is something else. For all of you people returning, the crafting material from tier 6.5 and above, Axis and above, is different than what you know. Instead of having a random chance in a box to obtain something, you're either given a box, or in this case you farm for individual pieces. Each of these are guaranteed in very small amounts. And apparently I'm whistling now. Need water real quick. But they drop in various amounts that you can actually make use of to farm. And the easiest way to find out how many you're going to have to farm is hit the target, find out what the average drop is between X number of targets, and find out what the crafting material costs are going to be. And then that'll tell you how many you have to hit. In my case, I've actually found out that they're the average that you get from boxes. So most of them you're going to have to hit a similar number as to what the boxes were. Or, in some cases, they're actually half of what the boxes were, so in which case you have to hit twice as many, but either way, you still just have to hit them and progress. So in this case, let's say you have to hit twice as many what the boxes are, so you need 5 boxes to make a single Mark II Guardian. Well, now you need 10. But the targets, they're fairly well balanced towards the factions that are supposed to be fighting them. So if you have the damage resistance and things like that to them, you can fight them and win fairly easily. You just need to have good fleets to begin with, which we will actually work on getting all of you over time. Other than that, the Harvester's targets are not in the game right now. Again, they're a target that will be introduced in the future at an unknown time frame. And it will be introduced for all of you lower level players because it's something all of us players, the higher tiers, we got via an event. And all of you are going to be able to farm for it. And if it was up to me, I would have rather farmed for it than actually play the event, because I could have spread that farm out over the course of several weeks and not had to push it all over the course of a few days for the required points that it wanted. And the Altarian sector is the same way. Again, the corresponding cargo fleets drop the blueprints of the corresponding ships. In this case, go after the Vanguard if you want the Bastion, the weapons for the Bastion, things like that. You'll have shells and everything like that. And it's only for the first 5 ships of the Altarian faction. So, the Sovereign, the Inquisitor, the Paragon, the Cavalier, and the Bastion. They are the primary ships that you get. Cruiser, Destroyer, Carrier, Cutter, and then the Battleship. And they're going to be your very, very close friends while you're ranking up. And the fact that they introduced a way to actually farm the blueprints for the Altarians, so for all of you who are currently tier 6, which is Xeno Division, you can farm right up into the current tier, because right now we're using Altarians because they're part of the RPS system, and that is the rock, paper, scissors system that is in place. It still needs tuning, I'll admit, but you can farm up into them, and you can collect the base weapons, and if it's a blueprint, you can farm it from these targets. And they've done an extremely good job with balancing them, because one thing that was notorious was the mothership targets. When I saw the Altarian mothership, I thought, uh-oh. But it's not an uh-oh. Before, the Bastions actually all used plasma, everything the fleet used high-level plasma weapons, and they would rip you to pieces. And I would never send my behemoth into this fleet because it was always outranged. It's still outranged, but it's not as bad. Everything is actually balanced. Everything looks like it's all stuff that the players would have equipped on their own ships. That's right. It actually looks like it's stuff that we have equipped on ours. Second, it looks like the entire fleet was built around the premise that you could fit it in a fleet bay if we did not have the limit of 6 ship slots. It looks and feels in combat like that. It feels balanced in terms of weight for each individual ship. What could they carry, what could they fight with, and stuff like that. It feels balanced in that regard. And it feels good. So, great job to the development team for this impressive feature that's been added, because so many players are going to be able to use this to advance into Tier 7A and be able to start open up from there, because they can choose their targets after they farm up the corresponding ships of the previous group to be able to fight and farm for them, so that they can actually make use of all of these to upgrade their ships. There's no longer waiting or anything like that. Though, there is one thing I do have to explain. There are no Mark 6 targets, because Mark 6 is actually going to be reserved for events. You're going to be able to get credits from events and things like that, just like with the higher tier Altarians and things like that. But the primary way that you're going to be able to get the Axis credits and the Xeno credits is going to be from the reworked and revamped Alien Strike. That's right, it's been revamped and it's been reworked. I do not know at this time if it will be going live in 2 days from now for the revamp, or if it will still be the standard one, but since this has arrived, if they had the time, I would expect that they would have been able to perform something to get the revamped system into place for the Alien Strike, but they've done a great enough job now that, I mean, you guys can start farming right now. You don't have to wait. All this is live in the game. Everything here is. And then it's just under your menu right here. Just like where you'd see the sector activity, it's the galaxy map. And it will be expanded upon, because certain areas, they'll be open permanently, because they'll be the areas where people can go to farm blueprints and mark upgrades without having to wait for a monthly event. So in between monthly events, what you can do is you can just build up your standing forces and just make them stronger. Build them up for the next monthly event, build up the crafting materials, just build everything up, you know, spend a little bit of time in the game, farm up some mark upgrades for some ships that you need, up to Mark 5. You know, farm for a carrier if you need it, upgrade the carrier, do things like that. But that's going to be it, everybody. Let me know what you guys think, what your first impressions of Deep Space are. Let me know how quickly you're going to be getting into farming and stuff like that. Let me know if this is encouraging for you guys to come back. And another thing, build times have been reworked. Partially. The build times for Axis and, well, mainly Axis technology at the moment, as well as some Xeno, has been reworked. So it takes a short amount of time for you guys to fit stuff, build stuff, and refit stuff than it took me to initially. When I was into everything like that, Paladin Carrier, mine took over 15 days when I was doing my initial fittings, but I mean, I only had the one Paladin Carrier at the time. For you guys, it should be under 10 days. For a Mark 5 fitting similar to what mine took. And mine, theoretically, it took longer because I was going through the stages of refitting, prepping it, refitting it, prepping it, refitting it, prepping it. Because you guys all now, you have a refit mechanic in the game. And if you put new technology over old technology, 80% of the initial time put into the first set of technology that's being replaced is then reduced from the second set of technology. So let's say you have 40 minutes, well, 1 hour, you're going to take out roughly 56 minutes of new technology. Let's say it's exactly 1 hour 20 minutes. It's now under an hour. That's sort of how the refit mechanic works. So now it's remember how I used to say that I could never recommend the game because it was just tedious and a grind? Well, there's still aspects of the game that I cannot recommend it for, but in terms of progression, it's becoming much more smooth. You're not being so time-locked by events, because as with this feature, you're going to be able to farm at your pace, upgrade at your pace, build ships at your pace, and do things like that. they've done an impressive job. A very, very impressive job. But more than that, a quick summary of everything. Deep Space. Upcoming campaign missions to help get players up to Tier 6. A farmable harvester at some point in the future for the Axis sector, which again, it is the safe sector, so you can go in there and there's no PvP allowed. You can't engage each other. And the game's looking better, and if they can keep on this path and take care of the rework for repairs, and I have suggested a few times how they could address the issues, such as a concurrent repair system. Alternatively, looking into Altarian repairs, because right now Altarians are the squishiest in terms of the armor and stuff like that. And I'll talk further about it in a different video, but just a quick comparison. Level 3 Plasma Shield, well, Shell, 36 minutes, 41 minutes, 7,168, 9,900, 36, 41. That's only a 6 or 5 minute increase, well, less than a 5 minute increase, for over 2,000 points of energy, and it has no major drawbacks. And I do have further ways to help work with the RPS system, which I will talk about later. For now, let's go ahead and let's keep this video on topic. Let's discuss Deep Space, what your initial impressions are, and if you're a player that's returning, go ahead and share your thoughts on it below. Let us know if anything could be reworked or if there are certain things missing. And right now, the only thing for Deep Space is in the hub area is Axis. It's not focused on Xeno Division because you're supposed to get from the campaigns on the 11th. But for now, that's going to be it, everybody. Share your feedback below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, found it helpful, or just found it informative, or if you didn't even realize the game was still alive. Feel free to go ahead and subscribe because there's more content like this on the channel, a lot more. There are tutorials for farming the Behemoth from Mark 1 to Mark 6. Using technology, you can farm using the Behemoth as you go along. You'll need other ships to be able to farm it as well, such as the Sovereign Carrier. But now, because they've introduced the little Altarian sector with the mothership target right... Where is it? Scroll right over, right here. The Mothership Cargo 94. You can now farm for your Sovereign Blueprint right there. I do not know if you'll be able to craft weapons or anything like that, but that's how you're going to be able to get it. But that's it, everybody. Be safe out there in the void. Happy hunting. Be careful in Deep Space. And as always, I will see you later.